A little late, running on native time today. I had to kind of jog here. So I am going now to see if I can get the chat to come up. Okay, I have to wait a minute. And gosh, I don't even remember my topic at this point. I had to run so much today. And I seriously mean that. Oh my God. Well, hi everyone. We'll talk about something else, I guess. I think it was about communication. There's just too much noise in this area. So, seriously. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Sorry, I'm a little disorganized today. I've had a very busy week. I've been kind of, I don't know, 56 hours this week, so I'm just tired and out of my head. Yeah, yeah, it is beautiful up here. Let me grab my glasses. And I still can't remember my topic. Could somebody set my topic up for me, please? I am brain dead. I should have looked at it before I went live. Oh yeah, Befriending Sasquatch. Some of the odd characteristics and things that they do. Thank you for the reminder, uh, Brandon. Sorry, I need some contacts. My glasses are getting too old and I can barely read even with these things on now. So, it was kind of easy to befriend Jen Jen because she was always around. So, for that interaction, I kind of followed her lead. But now that I'm older and I have to, try to interact with these things without a go-between, because he was more or less, not only a teacher, but also kind of a go-between, because she did have other suitors that came, and I got to see a couple of them. So they will start protecting you, take you in, and start teaching you as long as you pay attention to a few simple rules. You cannot try to trick them. They are too keen intellectually for that. And they will shun you. If you try to trick them or cheat them or lie to them, they'll stop interacting with you. So when you're trying to build a relationship, you have to remember it's respect. You have to address them like they're people because they see themselves as people. Might as well extend that courtesy. And then they have, customs within their own culture. They don't just trade with anybody. They don't just befriend anybody. They'll get to know you on a kind of 40 foot away level. But once you prove to them that you can read their kana or understand their trail markers and you understand some of their respect customs in addressing them correctly, like the kana that I suggested, it says friend and addressing an elder. It's actually kind of like a form of saying, like you do in Japanese, Ohayo gozaimasu, yada yada, whoever the person's name is, san. San is an address where you are recognizing the individual's importance and their internal divinity to a certain degree. So you are showing a respect for an elder, but also for the light of creation inside of them, kind of thing. So that is also a perspective that at least the Omagwach, Skakamiyaran, and a bunch of others that are very friendly with us all seem to go by. They have that proper nature to them. You have to be polite, introduce yourself when you go into their areas, even if it's just a cop or a ho or whatever, kawa or two taps, say hello. And that gives them an ear up that you're there and they will respect you. That's why they started protecting me, the Skakam over on the river. I'd gone into that area cold. I'd only gone in there, I think 3 times, maybe 4 times. I did 2 lives. And then, I got the boogeyman marker. And at first I thought, oh, the kids, because I startled them, are, free and it's play. But I forget, these people are quite literal. So they play with their symbols. I mean, the kids do when they're learning. But you have to keep in mind if an adult is trying to communicate to you, it might look like child behavior, but it's not, and the communication is incredibly important sometimes, like that one was. So they will, as long as you respect them and you don't try to trick them, you're honest with your trades. Now, trades, wow. So when you're dealing with their trades, I had some really interesting experiences up on the reservation when I was in Washington. There was a group on the land that I was, well, they'd passed through the land I was living on. It was about 4.5 acres, 5 acres, and the back, like, half acre was pass-through trail. And they had a marriage spot up on that hill and a stoneworking spot for making tools. So at night, you'd hear all kinds of unusual stuff on the backside of that property. You'd hear singing, you'd hear drumming, you'd hear the stones being cracked and they were making tools. And one of the group up there wanted a permanent trade with me because I'd been giving out donuts that were, day-old donuts in boxes to see if I could encourage them to interact with me. Well, this one individual became very fond of chocolate-covered donuts. So much so that I finally ended up having to just place him outside my door because he brought his trade sticks right within 3 feet of my door. So one night I didn't have chocolate-covered donuts, so I put down raspberry cream donuts. All of a sudden his trade sticks were gone. They were broken in half. The container of donuts, the package was open and all the donuts were everywhere. There was one that had been bitten, but he didn't like it. He didn't want to trade with me anymore. I had insulted him. I had given him the wrong product, so to speak. So if you do end up doing a consistent trade where they put down parallel sticks, one stick and one stick side by side, like so, then you're dealing with a permanent trade item. Always use the same item in that area. That's an individual who likes that specific item. That can be a mistake that can cost you some research time if they don't want to cooperate with you anymore. And then some of the things that you'll get back from them, and at first you probably won't get anything. And sometimes these groups will only, or an individual will only want you to give them one item and they don't want any other contact with you. They'll just let you know they're around and they'll ask for the one item. But other than that, they'll be standoffish. And that's usually because of the group that they are. Like dog people, they don't like trading. Uh, they want to ignore you. They'll harass you when you try to start trading with them. So they don't do that very quickly. And I've also noticed some mixed groups that have dogmen in them. Even though there might be Oma or Guanch that have adopted the dogman, or maybe he's the result of a molestation outside of the group, they because of the dogmen typically won't trade with you. So there are some oddities too within their culture I still don't quite understand, because I was never really taught a whole bunch about the dog people. I was taught more about what we called our forest brothers, the people like the Oma and Guanch, Skakam, Yaren, things like that. And I think I dropped my glasses somewhere. Oh, yep. Hang on. Oh, Jen Jen was the Oma Sasquatch female who lived on our ranch between, oh gosh, let's see, that had been 1968 and 1974. I interacted and played with her on a daily basis. She taught me to speak, along with, my grandmother teaching me a little bit of the language and Uncle Ong teaching me the language, and taught me how to utilize the stick language. She was one of the individuals I interacted with learning this stuff, because I couldn't always be at my grandmother's house in California when I was living up here. And Uncle Long didn't always have time to come and teach me, and my mother's focus was to teach me all the sounds of the kana and all of the strokes. So it was many, many years of interacting with cryptids and my family, learning the language form and learning their customs in some ways. But I only know, specific information about a few cultural groups of them. I don't know about all of the cryptids across the United States. I know some good information about 4 or 5 groups. And I think that's actually a pretty good thing because I don't think most people have any cultural knowledge of them at all. So to have any knowledge of, one group, let alone 4 different kinds of people, then that's something that needs to be shared. Oh, Jen, she was 10 years old when she came to the ranch, and she was about 8.5 feet tall. During the length of the time that she spent on our ranch, she grew another foot. She grew to a total height of about 9.5 feet before she was finally married and off of our ranch and starting her own family. Yeah, sugar rush. I'm just reading some of these comments, see if there are any questions. You've seen parallel sticks, Brandon. Yep, that means they've got a permanent trade going on in that area. And if they're at an angle, like this way, look with a division in the middle, so they don't look like a teepee, but they've got the 2 little hashtag kind of and yerp. That's the symbol for my mind, meaning they want to buy and sell something. So when you find the 2 parallel sticks, typically you also find the 2 sticks of diagonal pattern real close to the parallel sticks. And then you got to start looking because there'll be like a kana or sometimes a kanji that'll tell you what the item is if it's a new trade. But if it's an old trade that they've had, together for a long time, you'll have to wait and find what the item is that's left because they typically won't tell you twice what they want. They'll just tell you once. Yeah, no problem. You're welcome because those simple little kinds of. No, I never did get to meet Jen's family. I knew where they lived. They lived about 3.5 miles north of our property up in the mountains, according to her. And she described how to get to her family's place. I could still go there probably today if there isn't too much private property in the way. Uh, but I also know where she lives, and she's down on the river somewhere, which I've got to go. Once I have a vehicle, I have to go try to find her, see if I can get her to, let me sit next to her again, because I'd like to be able to see her one more time and let her know I really appreciate everything she did for me and, those years that she was on our ranch. And besides, I don't know, she's 5 years older than me, so she's 65 this year. So she's probably starting to turn gray. I know that Guanch, her husband, is turning gray because I saw him this spring. She came 2 years ago, but she wouldn't let me see her during the day. She only let me see her at night. But her husband, Guanch, let me see her during the day, or him during the day. And he's already starting to salt and pepper gray. And I think he's just a couple of years older than her. I think maybe 67-ish. My guess is their lifespan, because she said they could live 70s to 150 depending on the stresses in their lives and the things that they ate and how big they grew. It seems like the bigger they grow, because some of them have like the genetic factor like the ligrans, and they don't have the turn off or the growth gene. So like Jinjin's father was 11.5 feet tall when I was a child, and uh, they don't they have to when they get too big and if they don't stop growing, her family had to consider that her father might have to go up towards Alaska because that's what happens when they can't stop growing, in order to not be around people that are going to freak out about them and to preserve their own lives, have enough game. Uh, those that can't stop growing go to Alaska. So her family wouldn't be able to go see him. You know, they would have to travel days and days and days. So there's part of your reason why you got such big ones in Alaska. Some of them genetically can't stop growing, so they self-isolate. An A with two little sticks on the bottom right mean it's a house with two individuals in it. An A is typically, uh, well, the teepee shape is a representation of a house. If you got two little parallel sticks next to it, it means two individuals are going that way to a home. If the legs of the A extend, those are the two pathways in and out of that house structure where they sleep. And that's a trail marker style. It's not per se a kana, because kana actually are, are giving you a sound, like the N sound, or they're giving you an element of language, like the ga sound. So, and then you can build those into kanji that make words, like friend, by putting the ho sign and the N sound together. Han or hon gives you that next word. So when you're dealing with their trail markers, it's more like you're looking at a description symbolically that communicates the paths that they go in and out or through, back and forth through with, where their homes are, where they forage, and where they're sitting. They'll let each other know, you know, internally within their groups. What you're reading are their internal communications with each other. So you're taking advantage of them by reading their trail kana and follow, or their trail markers, and following it to their kana, which gives them, you know, your next clue as to where they're at and what they're doing in their area. And these languages, like the trail markers, is something that was still relevant to Native Americans. We still utilize the same exact types of trail markers indicating pathway or direction or number or where we're camped or where we're hunting or what we're doing. Because when you're passing through each other's territory, you have to explain yourself sometimes or you'd get attacked. So we would communicate on the ground with trail markers to see, hey, this is where we're at. Friendly tribe will leave you alone, and you won't leave that kind of a marker down if you aren't in friendly territory. And there were other things that we did too. You'd have a point person that would see if the tribe up ahead was dangerous or not. And sometimes, you know, like in the South American Indians on my Maya side, you'd use hand symbols and just push your hands out through the bushes, and use the hand symbol to indicate who you were. If you got an arrow chucked at you, you knew that was an unfriendly tribe. Your hand symbol didn't work there. Gotta go, ho. And there's park areas. There are people down here. Let me see what else might be said here, so I might be able to answer something. Okay, one time when I was walking in the woods, I had a cough. Oh yeah, I heard a cough. No, real deep bad cough, huh? I lay down 3 parallel sticks, and I came back. After the loop, there was yarrow placed above the 3 sticks. So kind. Yeah, that's healing. They will sometimes give you, you know, food items that are healing items, that are remedies, especially if they notice that you have something wrong with you. Hey again, Jason, how you doing? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to know that it's storming up there. It's been weird weather here, Jason. We've gone back and forth. We're back to sun. It was just hailing and raining a week ago. I hope it's not windy up there. I know it gets bad in that area. Yep, Penny, now you know why they can be, 19, 24 feet tall. I mean, the biggest one I've seen had been scraping 15 feet. And whoa, I wouldn't want to see a bigger one. That was enough for me. Yeah, it's like looking at one of those giant, Halloween decorations with a little suit of hair on it. Giant skeletons. No, thank you. Uh, they're huge, some of them. And just the size alone is like, wow, scary, scary, scary. Okay, so, wow, thank you. I'm new here. Hey, Deborah. Yeah, go ahead and feel free to go look through all my videos. I'm trying to get them a little better organized and kind of grouped so that there's a little quicker access. Like I've put all the tracks together in one playlist. I've got another playlist that's the, cryptic communication skills. I'm going to make another video. I'm going to try to more clearly show the differences between my language. I need to clean up when I'm speaking about the things. I need to make it more clear. Sometimes I get so excited. Oh boy, I could show you guys something. Yeah, I need to be more clear that, this is a trail marker and this is how it's read, and these are kana, and these are the sounds that they make. So I have to pay more attention to that so that the information that I'm giving you is actually useful. Wow, yeah, sometimes they'll leave items, I've, I had one Bigfoot, and I never got to see the individual. I think it might have been a female, but I don't know, but for some reason, she would leave me a little ball. I don't know if it was for my dog. I think it was always for my dog. So it was when I was living up in Washington, and it was not yet when I was on the res area. I was still more in town, and I knew there was a group passing through. And my dog was always in the backyard, but my dog never bothered him, never barked at him because he was my tracker dog. He already knew what they were. And so, like every day, I'd find like a little ping pong ball or a golf ball or just a tennis ball. It was always left right on top of my mailbox next to my door. And I asked my neighbors, any of you ever do this? Do you ever see anybody that does this? No, nobody ever saw anyone, and they didn't do it. So I always kind of assumed maybe she was leaving a ball for the dog because he was good. So yeah, sometimes they can be very friendly and they can be very willing to trade. Like the Skookum near the river, they were very quick. I mean, within a month, they were very informative to me. They started including me in their communications because I'd go in, I'd cough, hey, hello everyone, I'm here, friend, and then I go in. But I went in cold the first time. I didn't make any kind of gesture because I wanted to see if there was anything there. So I did all of the recordings of the addle and the tools and stuff. And then, of course, they picked all that stuff up the next time I went through. That stuff wasn't there anymore. So, that was when I started introducing myself so that they realized, I realized they're there. And that recognition gets the process of trying to interact with them going. But really get close to them, like get them to a point where they will sit down within 4 or 5 feet of you or 10 feet of you, you've got to be in their area 8 to 10 hours a day, every day. I did that for a solid year up in Washington as an experiment to see how long it would take a cold group that was in a public area that no one interacted with, how long it would take them to get friendly, and it took a year. And I went in every day. I had time off my work at that time, and I was looking for work, so I'd do my look for work thing in the morning, and then I go straight out to the field. Then I'd be out there, goofing around in their areas, following their trails, figuring out where they were, bugging their young ones sometimes by accident. I ran across one juvenile up a tree. I scared him so bad he was shaking the top of the tree at me. And I didn't even have a camera or anything with me to do anything about it. I just had to stand there and look at him. Oh God, I'm so sorry, and go on down the trail so he didn't worry that I might hurt him. Because their juveniles are kind of skittish of us for the most part. I mean, they're partly the most friendly out of the group and the most trusting. They'll come up the easiest to you, but they're also sometimes the most easily startled. So you have to remember they're going to run away from you typically. Won't normally run at you. I've never had that experience anyway, but they will leave, and sometimes in a hurry. Oh, Penny, I have orbs that come to me in the evening time out in the woods. Oh, wow. Do you know if they are Sas? I don't think that the orbs are Sasquatch. And the reason why I say that is the town that I grew up in had an incident with a family up on the mesa behind our home for like 3 years. All of a sudden, they had orbs that would go through their home. And the orbs were anywhere between like the size of a dime and maybe 3 foot in diameter. And they just kind of ganged this house. There were several hundred of the things. And they would come at dusk and they would bounce through the house. They'd go in and out the doors and the windows. Things would open and close. Some of them were purported to be able to go through the walls or peer in the home. It disturbed everybody in the home so bad that they actually moved out of the house for a time. And they brought people from the local university up and a team from the military in to research those orbs and find out what they might be. I got to go up one of the evenings. They were conducting research because everybody in town knew about it. You just drive up and park your vehicle and looky-loo across the open field at the place. And they determined it was some sort of an energy form. They figured it was some sort of ball lightning is what they gave us as a story. But it wasn't ball lightning. Whatever these things were had some sort of sentiency. I remember the night we went up to watch, there was a bunch of military guys and they had like pegs in the ground and they had a bunch of wiring on the ground, like they were doing some sort of a grid map or doing some sort of a scan of the ground. I'm not sure what the equipment was. But there was this, military guy, and they were all in hazard suits up there doing this. That was the other weird thing, is everybody was in a hazard suit, except for the officials standing around on the sidelines wearing, normal uniforms or suits, looking at everybody. Yeah, it was so stupid the way it was done. So anyway, this one fellow is in his hazmat suit, and he's got some sort of a box in his hand, and he's walking between these metal lines that are on the ground. And there's a little orb following him, like a little green ball, maybe 2 inches in diameter. And he finally noticed it about halfway through his little, probably 30-foot long stretch that he was walking through. And he freaked out. He ran away like it was attacking him or something, and he just kind of bounced along behind him, all curious like. We saw a few that came down to our ranch. They kind of dispersed throughout that town for a while after they stopped going into that home. They just kind of dispersed throughout the area. People reported seeing them here and there throughout the town for a couple of months, and then they all disappeared after like 3.5 years of messing around with with these people's home. And then the people were finally able to move back in their house, but there was never any real explanation. Some people did say that they felt odd things, or they sensed that they were being talked to by the orbs. And there was a lot of unusual things said about them. Some of the people's interactions with them were kind of peculiar. Like one fellow further west of us claimed that he had an orb that hung around in his bedroom one night and looked like it was had a hole in the middle and it was showing him different worlds and places. but he had no idea what was going on. And he just kind of laid there, paranoid out of his mind for the hour or two it was in his home. And then, it went back through the wall and disappeared. So yeah, I think there's something, but I don't think they're attached to Bigfoot. I think they're probably either something alien tech or maybe some sort of a life form that we don't know about, an energy being or something. I don't know, to be honest. And I don't think they're a spiritual thing. I don't think they're an entity running around. That's not the impression that I got from the type of research that they were doing. It seemed like they were trying to figure out how to catch one, to be honest. It seemed like a lot of what was going on up there, like they were trying to figure out how to isolate and contain one. And I don't think they were ever successful. Well, I've heard some bizarre stories from some. I don't have any photos of orbs, but if anybody else does, feel free. Post them in community or share them in your community pages. And the other is, if we can share stuff, we can always share through our community on YouTube. Those settings will let us share photos and stuff, so we can maybe start interacting, together as people in general, try to solve some of these riddles. Yeah, I've noticed that that was another thing. Some of the reports said there were far more of the orbs in the pictures than were seen that night. Because there were also photographers. They had box cameras out there and other like film equipment. But I remember they had one of the big old like 2 foot by 2 foot style box cameras like they use up in space. They had one of those fucking weird things there taking pictures of all of the stuff going on, which I thought was very strange because, I knew about those from history, but I'd never seen one. Oh, that'd be awesome. I would love to see some of that stuff, Deborah. I don't have any sightings of that sort of stuff here in my area. So that would be, something that's probably more local than yours. And I think, if we as people can start communicating where we see this stuff, then it doesn't matter what any other agency or, body of governance says. We're already talking about it. Yeah, I hear that, Lauren. Like where I'm currently at, the Skookum group up there occasionally warns me about some really bizarre stuff. There's only been a couple of times in the 4 or 5 months I've been there that I've seen some really bizarre things. Coming back, like the first 3 weeks, 3 weeks that I was living up there, I was walking back at like 11 o'clock at night. I'd taken my dog down. I'd gone grocery shopping. It's 10 blocks back to my house, and it's all uphill. And for some reason, there was a lot of orange glow in the sky that night, and it didn't look like it came from anywhere. You'd see it behind the trees and the ridge line, but it didn't make any sense because it's not street lights, and it wasn't anything that was normally there. And there was this an accompanying really deep in the background and kind of a pulse to it sometimes. And I know that when I got closer to my home where the Skookum were, they started warning me where those lights were moving to, that orange aura of light. And I'm like, oh, okay. They don't consider that whatever is making that to be peaceful. They were trying to warn me of danger. So I kind of hurried my ass up and went home. Because I don't know. There's a lot of military stuff that goes on in this area. A lot of exercises are done in these areas. And there's all kinds of rumors about underground bases regionally somewhere in this area. And there's always bizarre stuff. I mean, in this area, if you go out and you watch the night sky around our local airport, you see some pretty bizarre things. You'll see little orange orbs that follow planes and then kind of fizzle out like a spark. I don't know what those are. Uh, that's as close to an orb thing, but it's always over by the airport, and they're always following airplanes. I don't think they're orbs. I think they're probably something else, maybe another cryptid or something, because they only show up like once or twice a week. I have heard that some people do get followed by orbs. Uh, yeah, they seem to be intentionally interested in some individuals, so I'm not sure what that's about. Does it mean when you get feathers in the path while hiking? Ooh, means you probably have, yeah, I don't know, you might have Bigfoot that likes you. Feathers are something they like to gift people, sometimes if they like you a lot. Especially they'll give you like feathers that are either unusual, like raptor feathers, or they'll give you pretty feathers, like you know, tanager feathers. Sometimes you'll get some really odd feathers left behind. I have that happen a lot to me if I go into an area with regularity. You know, sometimes I'll see the feathers stuck in the ground too, and not just laying across my path. That's always interesting to see. When they're stuck in the ground, I don't pick them up because that's a native way of making a prayer. You pray to the Creator. The feather carries your word on the air, and you stick the feather in the ground so that the Creator hears where you made the prayer from. So if you see them stuck in the ground, just leave them there. Some natives praying. Yeah, yep. Very familiar, isn't it, one? Oh yeah, I've gotten bird bones too. I've gotten neck bones sometimes. Every once in a while I'll be left a little skull. I got a collection of all kinds of little strange bones and things that have been left for me in the path. And it's usually, I think they're trying to, let you know they're there or they're communicating with you, and it's their way of saying you respect us. Okay, I'm going to respect you enough to give you something. The other is there's never take in their culture. There's only gift and exchange. So you're never going to not be given something back. You may not understand what it is yet. It might be a word, it might be some information in the future that they're going to give you. But there is no take. If you give something, you have to gift something. So if you're given an item, you have to give something back. And that's also very native. In a native culture, indigenous culture, we always gave to each other. You don't just take. That was one of the big problems culturally between, settlers and natives is we were part of the, give and gift process, and they were part of the we'll just take it process. Yep, stuck in the ground. Good, yeah, you'll find those a lot. The feathers stuck in the ground. At least I do in this area. Yep, I've seen raccoon skulls. In fact, one of the things I found up in the Oma area, where the old woman was, when I was trying to figure out what was going on, because she was getting very old, and she'd had a male child, which wasn't ideal because she was a leader. She needed an heir, so it meant that her son had to marry before she passed, so that their family would still maintain relevance, as it were, within their own status and family, or in their cultural group. So he started showing off. He was maybe 4 or 5. And they usually don't marry. They can marry that young, but they usually aren't considered to have good enough skill sets to, as a male or female, to take care of a child. So they don't usually let each other marry until they're 8 years of age or older, 8, 10. So he was trying to get married really early. So he made this tree. It was a witch hazel tree, and he put like the little skulls of all kinds of critters, like rat skulls, squirrel skulls, little deer skulls, raccoon, etc. And when it wasn't anything except, hey, I'm a good hunter. See how good a hunter I am? I'll make you a good husband. These are all the kinds of food you can eat if you're my wife. So it was his way of trying to say, I'm adult enough to do these things. I can provide these kinds of things for our family to grow on. So you'll find that kind of behavior occasionally too. So it's not an evil behavior. It's not a torture behavior or anything. That's just a younger male trying to prove that he is old enough to marry and provide for a family. And he's showing proof of his ability. So a lot of the things that we think about them are too mythic in nature by any means. I mean, it confuses the matter more than it helps clarify. But it's all we've had to go on for 100 years culturally. You know, everybody thinks they're just a mythic thing. Ah, shape shifting. I don't know if I've ever seen shape shifting. I have seen Jin Jin disappear. When she meditated in the afternoon in the sun, she'd hum. She made this funny little sound that kind of, when you got close to her, it vibrated you. Your energy felt like it was humming with her, like a piece of machinery was running at full bach, full out speed right next to you. And she'd get into this state. I guess it was clarity of mind, or maybe it was the tone. And she looked like she'd become see-through. And then she just looked like nothing, like a wisp of smoke. She didn't even look like she was just there. I could be next to her, and I couldn't see her. I could feel her. I could touch her. And it'd break her concentration. All of a sudden, she'd be back. But it was like sitting next to a meditating Tibetan monk and going, hey, buddy. It was the weirdest thing. She was still there, but she disappeared. But then, monks do that too. They disappear. Tibetan lamas and monks, some of them will meditate and disappear. Some will meditate and levitate. Some can meditate and do other things. And I think that the Sasquatch, the Sabe, you Bigfoot people, I know that the Oma do those sorts of things. I'm assuming that my father didn't lie to me when he adopted me, because he said that he's part of the hunting cultures, but they still practice forms of telepathic communication. And there are ways of teaching your brain to be more telepathic. If you ever, answered the door before somebody knocked on it, or picked up the phone before it rang, or got a feeling I got to go see my friend today, or oh, I got to call somebody, there's something wrong, you're experiencing telepathy in some form. And actually, Uncle Ong said we are all telepathic to one degree or another. It's just whether or not we work on it, like any skill. And then, there are also the native myths about skinwalkers and stuff like that. But those shapeshifters, there are different types of that sort of thing. There are societies like up above the Okanagan in the Yukon territories. There's still a bear society, native bear society up there, where the natives go to learn to shapeshift into bears. But it's a form of meditative practice. They do it by changing the pattern of their energy, is how they explain it. I've talked to a couple of people who have been part of that society, and yes, they do have some concerns too, because if you practice the art too much and you stay in the meditative form too long, sometimes you can't come back. You become the bear, you become the creature, and then you become as a bear. You lose your reasons, you lose your ability to communicate like a person, and you transcend into the next form. Oh wow. Hey, you're just above me there, Mr. Milwaukee. Silent uh, cricket. I'm down in the Willamette. You're maybe an hour drive from me. I just don't have a vehicle. And in fact, that's up in that region west. There's where I grew up. That's where Jen Jen and all the Guanche people live. Where all that stuff happened. With the Goodway and whatnot on our property. Oh, I'm so glad you liked my channel, Penny. I uh, I had my reservations at first about how to present the information, you know, and then I just decided, if I present the language and then go backwards, give something for people to understand immediately, and then they can put it together for themselves. You know, there's plenty of pictures out there, and I think a lot of it is we expect certain peculiar behaviors out of them. We've got the mythic mindset. Oh my God, they're going to attack us. They're out to eat us. But when you really get down to it, if they're everywhere, I mean, look at where I'm at. All of my tracking is done right here in the middle of like the public. So if they can live with us, you know, in our cities and not be noticed, I don't think they're really that dangerous. There are cryptids that are, but I think we need to start figuring out which ones are more human and which ones are more dangerous, and potentially either not getting the right nutrition, which is causing them to have issues, like the tegu, like the ones that eat just crawdads, the gugway, things like that. Maybe their mindset would be different if they weren't on a malnutrition diet. Because if you're only eating 3 or 4 food sources, your body and your brain is not, they're not getting the nutrition needed in order for you to have reasonable thought. At least that's how natives think. I don't know how y'all think, but in our native practices, if you don't eat enough, uh, your brain, once your body is eaten, your brain gets eaten. You gotta eat. You gotta have good nutrition. And it has to be varied, wide, it has to be omnivorous. Otherwise, we don't get enough minerals. And I think that any animal or human that kind of has a restrictive diet, if their body isn't really attuned to it, and I would suggest if their skin color is turning red, their body shouldn't be ingesting that much stuff. They're getting poisoned on it. There is a white cryptid actually just south of the Milwaukee area here in Oregon. He's a Bigfoot. He's an albino, and he's been seen for probably 30 or 40 years in that area. He's telepathic, according to people, and in, what was it? The History of Oregon Folklore, I think was the name of the book. They did an article in that book. It's just a little book, maybe 180 pages. They did a story on that particular cryptid because the woman is very adamant. He comes to her property and roams back and forth between several sets of property in the area, and the woman that interacts with him the most is very adamant about protecting him. And he also has so much problem with the sun, he will steal bed sheets off of people's back laundry racks, out in the sun where they're hanging to dry, and he'll tie a bed sheet to keep himself from burning in the sun. And so he's modest too. He doesn't like showing his junk off to people. And then let's see, White. There were also the stories from my native grandmother. She said during really ancient times, there was a point where people were hunted by white beings. But I'm going to get into that kind of thing on another time because it's an older myth. It's not modern. There were some rumors. There are still some rumors within Native communities. There are still some of those deep cave-dwelling white cryptids that come to the surface. But I don't know a lot about them modernly. I know old stories about them. Speaking of Chinooks, do you hear that in the background? More military ops. They've been running all over the place this week. That and our internet's been really crummy. If I haven't answered your email, it's because one of my phones can't get online right now because of whatever they're doing, I'm assuming. I'll have to maybe try to use this phone to answer my email. Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't want to see junk either. And that's the other thing. My Guanche father, their custom and their tribes actually to sit on their junk in front of women and children. They don't. It's considered bad form to show their private parts to children and women. I haven't seen any dog people that are white. The dog person, the dog man that I lived around, let's see, I moved into that place down in Douglas County, 2019 November, and I wasn't out of there until May 2020. But he was black, and oh, he tested me a lot. So back to the topic where they're difficult to get to know. I'll use him as an example. He wouldn't trade with me. I even went to the point of like sneaking up on him while he was asleep during the day because I found the glen that he was sleeping in. And I left him food within like 3 feet of his head. He left it. He wouldn't eat it. Uh, so he tested my resilience. Now, how to explain this? So he didn't. At first, he was trying to chase my companion and I away. I had a roommate that was up there, was doing work on the land, and I was working. And at first, he did the typical, he'd throw stuff. But then we also had the complication. There was a family of bear up there. There was a sow, a boar, and a 2-year-old boar. And the big male up there was about 520 pounds, black bear. Mama, she was maybe 300, 280, 300, and the little ones, he was kicking around about 200. He was a couple of years old. So until that situation with the bear got really peculiar and the bear started coming down and tearing up stuff in the property, the dogman had been trying to chase me out of there and trying to, force me to leave. He would throw things at me when I came home. He would scream at me at night. He would pound on the side of the yurt. He'd bump up underneath the yurt because it was built out on a level over a hillside, and his pass-through was right down the gully next to the yurt. So he was constantly, growling, doing other things. And then when the bear started coming too close to the home, below me, the owner's home, and ripping up the trees, I went out I had gone grocery shopping, and I went out because I went in to sit down, have a cigarette, calm down. I dang near hit a deer that night. I didn't want to go drag my groceries in. I was still like, blah, 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 because I just slid around a flipping corner, dang near hit a deer. So, and when I go back out about 20 minutes later after I calm down, grab my groceries, there's, I don't know, this boar bear was sitting 40 feet, maybe 50 feet away from the end of my vehicle. It wouldn't leave. It just sat there. So I unloaded my groceries. I'm watching that thing. Put my lights up on it. Put my brights on it because my vehicle was parked its direction. Blasted the horn at that bear. Wouldn't leave. Started growling. Started getting aggressive. Started throwing stuff because we didn't want the bear there. We were trying to hunt that bear out because it had been getting dangerous. It had already killed 2 people's dogs and it was starting to molest people's farm animals, and it was coming through our property, or that property. So part of the reason why I was up there was to isolate that bear and see if we could get it out of there. We couldn't get a tag for it. because there was a family group, and the state won't issue a tag for any member of a family group of bears. So, the night I couldn't get the bear to get away from my vehicle, and I'm blasting the horn, and I'm throwing stuff at it, and I'm screaming at it, and it's growling. It hadn't stood up yet, it hadn't got, but it wasn't budging. All of a sudden, the dogman's throwing stuff at it, and he starts growling at it, and it finally laughed. So I screamed up the hillside. I said, you keep bothering me, you keep trying to force me out, but you let the bear come through here and do all this stuff, and, what are you doing? And that's when he changed his attitude. After that, the dogman's focus wasn't on getting me out of there. His focus was dealing with the bear all of a sudden. So I don't know if I had challenged him or pointed out the fact that that thing was dangerous for both of our groups. I think it's that I pointed out it's dangerous for both of our groups. Why isn't he thinking about that? So I think I think that's the reason why he finally decided to hunt that thing out. And I heard that fight and saw the aftermath. My God. I think Dogman took a beating too, but I know he killed that bear, and I know he had enough strength to throw it over his shoulder and walk uphill with it. Yeah, I think there's military ops going on. They do training this time of year, Deborah, between like Olympia and down here. Sometimes they'll connect up to the San Diego bases. And this area, this valley, they do a lot of, airdrop to train people in unusual ground terrain, water terrain, swamp terrain, open field, because we've got a lot of different terrain variations within this valley and this section of Oregon. Oh, I'm glad the sunlight's breaking through for you, Jason. Yeah, it's probably going to be a weird winter. Uh, I haven't found a woolly bear yet. Woolly bears are a native way of saying, it tells you how long the winter is going to be. And they're late. So I think this summer is going to go on, probably get more stormy. As soon as I find a woolly bear caterpillar, I'll let you know what the diagnosis is. So the native way of reading a caterpillar, it's those little orange and black fuzzy caterpillars. The food band is black. So if it's an all black woolly bear with an orange band in the middle, you're going to have a very, very harsh winter. It's going to be a deep freeze. If your woolly bear is mostly red, and has a little tiny thin black line in the middle, it's going to be a very short winter or no winter at all. If it has a little bit wider band, it's going to be, kind of a regular winter. Maybe a little on the cold side. But counter-flipped in color, you're going to have freezing temperatures and it'll be below zero. Or not below zero, but below 32 for quite some time. And last year's, or year before last, woolly bears were black with an orange striped center. I haven't seen one yet this year, so I'm waiting to see what they do. And the other good indicator are ladybugs. Ladybugs will hibernate at certain times, and they have very specific, their hibernation is actually connected very, very directly to cold weather temperatures. So when they disappear, winter's on the way. When they reappear, it's gone. Those are two native tells of how to read the creatures in your area to tell what you're going to be facing. Those are useful things to know, especially if you're out in the field, having to live off the land. Yeah, you're welcome. I have kind of mixed feelings about danger levels for some of these. I think it's not something we can generalize because I'm going to tell you a really little messed up story. So I had a roommate back in 98, 99, and we go out party, and we'd walk through Dogman fields, areas where I knew they were at night, getting home. And one night, I, you know, noticed one that was hunkered down underneath the grass, sleeping, because you'll go along and the land lay won't be the same. You'll get this little 4-foot bump, and the grass will be all pulled over the top of the bump. Well, you got a dog man sleeping under that bump of grass. So for giggles, because we were talking that night about whether or not Bigfoot and other things existed, and he actually knew they do exist because he had relatives that had film footage, and but he was messing with me. So I said, "Oh, I'll go walk over here," and I walked up over the top of the dog man. I stood on him, and I could tell I was standing on something that had flesh because I'm wiggling. Your skin isn't solid; it moves as pressure is put on it. And I said, "Hey, why don't you come over here and see what's under my feet right now?" So my friend walks over. Well, I'm still standing on the dog man, and he's like, reaches down. He says, "There's hair under there." I said, "Yeah, smell your hand." He's like, "It smells like wet dog." I said, "Well, yeah, I'm standing on a dog man. Do you think it's going to attack me or what?" And I laughed and I stepped down. So if I can do that, I don't know if they're that dangerous. At least not here. Now, tribally or culturally, maybe there's a family group that's been hunted or harmed or in some way intruded upon so many times, they're fed up. They're done with it. They're probably going to be dangerous. I mean, I would be. So, yeah, you kind of have to think of these kinds of cryptids as being more like, when you first meet them, they act more like precocious teenagers trying to see what kind of a rise they'll get out of you. Can they make you run? Can they make you scream? Can they make you cry? Can they make you freak out? Are you going to shoot at them? I mean, oh my God. That dog man used to go and harass one of the neighbors. And for a couple of months, I wasn't sure if it was really what I thought was going on until the guy one night, he's been blasting for like 20 minutes out his back door, screaming at something, and he finally screams out, you black fucking dumb son of a bitch dog man thing, get the hell out of my yard." And I'm like, okay, that's confirmation that he's actually shooting at the dog man. So some of them will mess with you. They will incite you. They will test you to see what kind of a reaction you'll give. Like the old woman, when I met her, she led me to her. I'd been tracking her for over a year. Never got closer to her than, oh boy, I found a track and some feeding evidence. And then one day I found a track and found a knuckle print, and I'm like, this is all at the edge of the trails that I walk on. All right, so this is very weird. So I follow him. I got gullible, and I followed them straight to where she led me. She led me right to her. I was looking at the ground, looking at a track, and almost walked back by her when she went. I had to look up. She was 10 feet away. She was digging sword fern bulbs out of the hillside, and it led me right to her. And she just looked at me, and I looked at her, and I said, "Well, I'm not gonna hurt you if you don't hurt me." And okay. And she just looked at me and kind of smiled, and I didn't react badly. Oh, okay. You have a good day, and I walked on. Startled the hell out of me because did not expect that. But that was her way of making sure I understood. She knew I'd been tracking her. So there's some intellect there. That's not something a regular animal or primate is going to do. So some of their behavior will be very peculiar. It'll be more like human. It's more like playing hide and go seek with a bunch of big teenage kids. And once you figure out where they hide and seek and what they do each day, you can time it. You can sit down in their area and wait for them to show up. Like they'll follow the sun as they forage. They'll follow the sun. They'll stay in the shade where it's cooler. So if you can find one of their forage trails and you place yourself, you know, where they might be at 11 o'clock, and you go in at 8, 9, 10 in the morning, they're going to know you're there. They'll probably still follow their same pattern. Eventually, if you do that enough times, you leave some food behind, or you just turn around and leave when they start to approach you, act a little bit like them, they start to realize you're nothing to worry about. And you can, at that point, get pretty close to them. I was able to get within 10 feet of a Guanche woman up in Washington doing that sort of thing, and she had a newborn baby. Now, her baby was only a couple of months old when I started encroaching on her to see if I would get a bad reaction. I wanted to know if I was going to be giving bad advice, so I put myself in the position to see what they do. All she'd do is she'd pick up pea-sized gravel and throw it at me, 4 foot in front of my feet, to go, "Oh, I'm here." And I'd look over and she'd be sitting in the bush line holding the kid. Yeah. So you just I don't think they're what people realize. I mean, every interaction I've had so far, it might have scared the hell out of me at the time, but sitting there and thinking about it and logging it through, they're not. Their behavior isn't as aggressive as we think. It's, I think, more mistaken, because I think what they do is they, like the Skuck 'em Up where I'm at currently, they wanted to know if I understood words. So they gave me a word. And so I gave them the answer in English. And now I've gotten another word. I gave the answer in English. So if they understand English, well, they wouldn't have been able to give me a language, a note in their language, me answer it in English, and then go, okay, you got it right. And I had a very peculiar incident last night, because I've been asking them, so where do you move? How do you move? What do you do in this area? There's so much concrete up here, I can't track you. Last night I had a very interesting voluntary behavior that had been previewed the night before. So night before last, there was an individual up a tree, maybe a block and a half away from where I currently live. And I heard the word ho for tree. So I look up, and I see glowing red eyes on the top of a tree. And I hear a knock. So I go, "Hey friend, how you doing?" "Oh, means tree, right?" Last night, I hear it again, "Ho." And then I hear it drop from the tree, and I hear it run, and it was saying, "Ho, oha," which is hello. Tree, hello. So he was literally letting me know the guy that fell out of the tree is the guy running down the road letting you know where they're going. So he followed the road line and the path line that I actually follow when I go to the bus, as far as I can tell. So, and he may have cut a little further east on the road. But here, he did this at 2, 3 in the morning when nobody's awake. I could hear him move. I could hear him, calling to me. So that individual voluntarily let me know where they moved. So building a, relationship with them, it's sometimes, if they think that you might be in danger or that you do actually understand them, they're going to be quicker to give you interaction, like something like that. I wish I would have recorded it, but at the time both my phones were plugged into the wall. So I was charging my phone, so I stepped out to have a cigarette and let my dog have a potty walk, and I hear this going on. So to me, that was very interesting. I hadn't had something like that happen before, but, it's too clear that there was some very distinct communication going on there. So when they start to warm up to you, they start including you. You just have to pay attention. but they do proof. They want to know that you know that this means friend. It's also shorthand for dog. So 2 taps is friend or dog. And then they want to know if you understand their basics. Can you understand trade? Do you give and gift, or do you just take? If you take, meh, I'm going to shun you. You can go away. Uh, and then do you respond? If they power knock at you, or they leave a marker saying there's danger in the area, do you react appropriately? Do you read it correctly? When you're trying to make a trade, is the trade item something you understand in both languages, theirs and yours? Once they check you, because it's sort of like, I guess you'd say they're doing a breakdown of you, whether or not you can comprehend them, kind of like a debrief on you. Hey, do you actually get it? Once you can prove, that you can understand, like what a whoop means, come help me, or what a power knock means bam, get out of here, trouble. Can I follow the trail marker to where you're sitting? Once you can start proofing that you can understand what they do and how they do it, you all of a sudden get included way quicker in the group. But they're gonna challenge you sometimes too. Dog people in particular want to know whether or not you're strong enough, whether or not you'll not balk and run. They don't like cowards. Like when I messed up in the Yaren area, I knew I had to go back in because of what I'd done. I tore up all their markers to make a point. I was trying to let them know that they had a problem. Somebody was a problem within their group, so to speak. And I didn't know which one, so I tore up all their markers. I knew I would get fined. I knew I would get shunned. I knew I might get attacked, which is actually where I wanted to drive it to, because that would expose the individual within the group that was talking to the wrong people that don't have any hair. So it did expose the individual. They tried to attack me, and I was in water. I was hip deep in water. I was in the creek, and the reason why I went into the creek is because I have the advantage in the creek. You might think that that is foolish, but if you're going to take on something that's half a ton, you better hope it slips and you can drown it, or you can get away from it. And I know I'm not a better climber, and I know I can't outrun them on ground, but I know I can drown one and club it with a rock if I have to, maybe. So because I stood my ground and I did not run, that group now has given me a permanent trade agreement. And they gave me a name. They call me Fights Anything now. And that's spread. That nickname now, it's stuck them down here. Also, when I turned my camera off and the boogeyman mark had been found, the first thing I heard was a power knock from across the river. And then the guy in the bush, the Skookum man in the bush says, Fights Anything. And then he knocked and let me know, he led me to where the individual was camping, because I could hear him moving. So, you're dealing with tribal people. You're dealing with the same kind of mindset as tribal people. You're dealing with people that want to know if they adopt you, can you keep up? Do you understand how to move? Do you move quietly? Do you think? Can you read the signs to know what's being told to you if you have to run along a trail to follow them? And that's not primate behavior. It's all human there. Let me get back up here and see if I can answer some more questions. Okay. So let's see. I've had a wet dog smell turn up at my apartment when I talk about them. Always listen. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I got you, Wild. Sometimes I've had that wet dog smell in some places I've lived too, and I've known that to happen where there are no dogs. At least, not that anybody owned. You have some wild. Sorry, my phone is there, and maybe I can read it now. Some wildfires in the area, and one right now, or one night. I saw one of them apparently had been driven out of his normal area and believe, yeah, they are very, very big muscled. The muscle structure on these guys, yeah, bodybuilder on steroids, covered in a fursuit. Yeah, just these guys are buff. You know, I know an area where I got pictures where they pulled out. No, they're pulling out nodules of stone that are probably anywhere between 100 and 150, maybe 200 pounds, some of them. And they were just popping them out of the bedrock by hand. They weren't using any tools. I've got pictures of that I'll share. Oh my God, that's... Normally they have a nine-month pregnancy, just like we do. It's not a 10-month pregnancy like other primates. And they do have regular menses. Their females have regular menses, and they do go through menopause in older years. And they can abort a child by eating poisons, which they do. If in the case of molestation, Jen poisoned herself on hemlock at least twice that I was aware of in order to get rid of the offspring from the gugway. The first time she poisoned herself so bad, she had the shakes from it, and I thought she was going to die. It actually kind of scared me because I didn't know, you know, how she ate about 20 plants. It should have killed her. There was way too much poison in her body, and I had to go ask my mom, how do I tell her don't eat that much? You know, she'll kill herself. So there was that too. She got a little panicked because what had happened to her, I think. If some police officers who had been patrolling hadn't seen it, I also wouldn't thought, yeah, looked around and just book, yeah. Yeah, you know, there was an incident in Washington where there was a Sabe Bigfoot running down the highway. And I don't know, 20, 30 people saw it. It was during rush hour. A couple of cops saw him. And that was back in early 2000s, I think. Maybe late 90s. A big bunch of, investigators went up to try to investigate the area, but as usual, they couldn't find anything because, well, he was running on concrete for one, asphalt. You used to get popping noises one season. Yeah, the sounds like a bottle pop. I can't even do it. You know, pop, and then you got pop, 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 like a gorilla. You know, the chest beat, but it makes that pop sound. I've heard that a couple of times in my life. Let me think. July 18th, 2009. I got surrounded, and I heard chest beating during that time being surrounded. I was surrounded because somebody had gone in and destroyed a bunch of structures. I'd gone in a few months later to try to take pictures of those structures, not knowing that they had been destroyed by someone, and the group was very angry still. So I got, forced off the ridge line I was on onto an opposite hill line, and I got surrounded. I got thrown at. I got sticks thrown at me. I got pine cones thrown at me. I got the chest popping. I got some growling, and I held my ground because once they ran me into the guy up the tree, because they literally forced me into a position where if they didn't want me to leave, I wouldn't have left. So I sat down. I coughed. Then I sat down. And as they were shaking bushes and throwing stuff at me, I just coughed, and they'd stop. till we all just got neutral. And then I got up and I walked down the path and got the heck out of there. And later I went back in and said, hey, you know me. Why are you acting? Your kid went crazy there. What the heck? Because it was one of their juveniles. He wasn't familiar with me. I hadn't been back in the area for 11 years. He'd probably been born when I was gone. So he warned about the bad human, not knowing I was not a bad human. And after that, everything calmed down once they realized, once the older individuals of that group went, oh, well, no, we know that one. That's an okay human. Then it, calmed down and they didn't react badly. Yeah, Jen, she'd collect walnuts out of our trees. She'd grab filberts. She collected the fruit when it came on. And her diet was she ate a lot of small animals, mice, birds. I don't think she ate anything bigger than a duck when she was on our property. And I never saw her catch a deer, for instance, or anything like that. She sustained herself on roots, berries, grasses, small game, just like any omnivorous human forager would. And she was able to eat the poisons, but then I think their digestive system and the fact that I think they have a working appendix allows them, like other primates, to eat things that we humans that don't have a functioning appendix. They can't eat poisons. I can still eat poisons because I have a working appendix. Everybody on my female side of the family line has a working appendix. The boys don't, but all of us girls do for some reason. And that's all from our native side. Yeah, and the skunk smell. Uh, no, it's not that I'm brave. I grew up around one. Uh, yeah, they might scare the hell out of me still because some of them are so goddamn big and they come at you a little weird sometimes. But all you have to do is realize that you're just sitting next to a bigger thing. The scary part is that you gotta trust that it's gonna be calm. But I've never had anything to suggest they're going to hurt me or carry me off. I When I was up in Washington, I had one that would sit down and play the Cheshire Cat mode with me. It was the babysitter for the baby that I traded teeth for. Right before they left the teeth for me, his babysitter came and down in the bed system I was in, their bed system, and he sat in the bushes next to me, winking in and out like a little Cheshire cat. He'd be there and then he'd disappear. He's doing the same thing that Jen did. And I had my lunch and I'm watching people walk by on the trail below. I'd look over, he'd be gone. There wouldn't be anybody on the trail below. I'd look over, he'd be there. And he'd be smiling and crunching on his chewing on berry stems. I'm like, okay, you little cheeky. Thanks for saying hi. Too bad my battery's dead. I can't take a picture of you. I stopped, because I couldn't take any more pictures. I ate my lunch and I was getting ready to go home anyway. And then he pulls this on me. He sits down next to me. So they'll pull stuff like that on you. They'll test to see if you really are as gumptious as you pretend to be. And if you aren't and you run away and freak out, they'll laugh and they'll probably go, no, not gonna mess with that guy. He couldn't stand ground in battle. He couldn't do anything. So you gotta think about how their mindset is too. They're very. Not only are they tribal, they're very family oriented. Don't mess with the kids. Take care of the elders, and take care of each other. If you can, understand that kind of indigenous behavior, they don't act poorly towards you. They actually start including you, and they start trusting you. But don't mess up, because then you got to pay fines, or you might get shunned forever. Or you have to know the system enough, what to do when you do mess up. Who do you go talk to? Which elder? Can you find the elder? Do you know to go talk to the elder female? Do you know where she sits? It's those sorts of things that, unfortunately have the advantage there. Something that I'm hoping to explain to people enough to give you guys the advantage of that kind of knowledge as well. Oh wow, we're already at an hour and a half. So you want to guys do another half an hour? Because yeah, I might tell you about the one dogman that I ran into in Canada. That was the weirdest. Oh my god, that was so weird. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of water. I've been talking for an hour, and I'm getting hoarse. So between let me think, moved up there in 98. Yeah. Hang on, I'm gonna move to the side here. Yeah, I moved up 98. I was getting to know a military man up there. I married, and we were living together, and learning whether or not we wanted to be a married couple. And when he shipped out, I took care of his apartment while he was gone. He was gone for 6 months to Croatia, if I remember right. And that would have been in like 2000, no, 1990, 91, because we moved back down here in 92. And while I was staying in that apartment building, I got warned by some of the other military personnel in the building, because it was one of the off-base campuses that you could live in, kind of thing, one of the recommended buildings, because it was a secure building, and within walking distance of the military base. So I got warned by a couple of the military guys as soon as my husband shipped out and said, "You live on the second floor. There's a guy that runs through the second floor. Don't open your door." And I got there like 3 or 4 of the other military people in the building. One of the guys that I knew up on the third floor that was, friends with my husband, I cornered him one night because he passed me in the hallway and says, "Remember, after 10, 11 o'clock, don't open your door. That guy is going to be running through here." And I'm like, all right, who is this guy? Is this a homeless guy that you people are talking about? Who is he? Who the hell you keep randomly telling me not to worry and stay in my house? So I got him to tell me, finally, there was a freaking 7-foot tall dog person. A dog man was running through the second story hallway of this particular 3-story building. And I'm like, you're kidding me. There's no way that's happening. You can't convince me. He says, "Oh, if you don't believe me, open your door the next time the thing runs down the hall. And then be prepared to lock it and do it quickly. Because you'll see it." I am, okay. So I watched TV, was watching movies. I kept the volume down low so I could hear him run. Because sometimes he'd be pretty light-footed about it. 3, 4 nights later, I hear him running down the hallway. So I jump up. I run over and I open my door. I crack it as I look down the hallway. So here's a 7-foot tall dog man with his hand on the door like he's going to go into the staircase hallway and go out the other end of the building. He just opened the door. I didn't quite time my opening of the door correctly, so he heard my click before his click. So it got his attention. So he looks at me, and I'm looking through the 6-8 inches of, oh God, what am I seeing? Shut the door. I closed it. I locked it. I deadbolted it. I went and I grabbed a butcher knife. No. So I'm standing behind my door going, I can't believe I just made that mistake. I'm so fucking dead. I don't think I'm going to live through this. I'm freaking out in my own mind. I got my knife in my hand like, oh fuck, if it comes to the door. And yeah, he came to the door. So I looked through the peephole. What did I see? His eyeball looking back at me. So I hit the door. I'm going, get off my door. What the hell you look like? And he stood back a little bit, and I could see his full face. He was all black. He looked like a German Shepherd, big dog. And he had this look like, what the hell are you doing? Growling a little bit. And he's right back to looking through my peephole. And I'm like, all right, you know that thing can look both ways. Okay, now I'm really freaked. So for like, probably half a minute, maybe a minute, he's on the other side of the door. I'm on the door, inside my apartment going, well, the guy upstairs was right. Holy, I'm not doing that again. And then, he finally left. Yeah, he scratched on my door a little bit. He didn't leave any marks, just kind of like, scoochie, 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 to let you know. And then he finally left. He went out the other end of the building. So after that, I got really fascinated with the fact that this thing was going through the building. And I'm sorry, I went a little... Alright, so I camped underneath the bushes across the street for 3 fucking nights just to see when he passed through and what he was doing. He'd time it. He'd come to the back door and he'd wait in the bushes at the end of the building for people going into this secure building to use their key to get in the entry doors at either end of the building, and he would time it. As the door closed, he'd just step up, grab the door latch. They'd assume it closed. He'd let them walk through. He'd open the door about 10 seconds later, walk through the building. He did that on both ends of the building. Everybody in that building knew about it. The cleaning lady used to bitch all the time in Spanish. And the other gal that worked, the Hindi gal, she'd bitch about it too, in Hindi. Oh, they dirty dog tracks on the carpet and paw prints on the wall. To be serious though, I those things are just not talked about. That was never in the local news. People in the building knew. The military base knew. But it wasn't any big thing. I mean, everybody always assumed, well, he's never hurt me, he's not dangerous, he doesn't do anything, he runs through the building. He'll growl at you, he'll try to intimidate you, he'll scratch on your door, but he won't bust it down. So why bother him? Who cares? He's just going through the building like anybody else. Yeah, I do think that some potential dogmen are very vicious. I just don't know which ones they are. And I don't know enough about the ones that are off the West Coast. We seem to only have 2 types here. We've got the ones up in the mountains with really... Well, no, let me take that back. Potentially 3 types. But I haven't visually seen the 3rd type yet. The one down in Douglas County that I live near, that was more like the mountain dogman. And he either wore face paint or he had coloration to his face. At one point, like during the day when I saw him, that when I caught him sleeping, he didn't have any coloration on his face. So I don't know if he was wearing face paint or if they have the ability to like change their facial tone somehow. Fur tone, I don't know. He seemed aggressive, but he turned out not to be, and his eye shine's electric blue. Beautiful, beautiful electric, beautiful blue. And then the ones that live down in the valley, what we call the grass dogmen or the grassmen, they have green eye shine. I've been able to trade with them, whereas the mountain ones won't trade with you. The ones in the valley, they'll trade. But they give you, like, the things they give you back are like raptor squab. They'll break the neck and leave the animal for you. So I try not to trade with them. I'd rather get a root or a rock than a, live paralyzed animal. So they'll leave you paralyzed animals in trade because that's, delicacy for them. They want to share a good delicacy for what. So I always take it and I put it out of its misery and I go bury it. I just don't let them see that. You know, I will let them think that I ate it, so that I don't have any bad relationships there. Um, but I've heard that in the eastern side of the country and in the southern states, and in certain particular regions, some of these, not only the Dogmen, but the other cryptids, some of them are far more dangerous. And then, you know, the inky dog prints, those actually, that individual has green eye shine, but he comes down out of the mountains. So to me, that might be a third type, because his eyes are a little different color green. The ones that are down here in the valley, their eye shine is more like lime green and a little darker. His eye shine is a little more yellowish, almost kind of like the Badgerman's eye shine, but not that bright. It's like a real pale green. And I haven't seen that individual yet. And there are two of them that are passing down, actually. One of them comes within about a block of my home. I tried to walk up on the dang thing when I first was there, and I got power knocked out by the Bigfoot there. I didn't realize there were skunk in the area at the time. But I took the advice of the anomalous Bigfoot to tell me to get the heck out of the area. Something was dangerous. I was getting too close to him. And the bigger dogmen in this area that have the pale green eye shine, all of the other, you know, Sabe people warn against being around them. And my mom did take me to an area in the forest south of here where the dogman was probably scraping 10 foot tall. And it had green eye shine, she said, but I never got to see it because I saw him during the day. We'd gone up for lunch, and my mother wanted me to show the waterfall that he would come to drink at in the afternoon. It's a hereditary area for that family of dog people, and she said, these are dogmen you don't ever track. Don't ever go into their territory. You'll never come back. Just stay away from them. And I've noticed that the Sabe in that area, the other Bigfoot people, they will warn you when he comes down. So yeah, there is one type here, and he looked like a big black dog too. He looked kind of like the other versions of him in this area. You know, upright walking dog with the tail, and you know, raccoonish front hands, the front paws, and you know, the ones in the valley. I haven't heard it from the ones up in the mountains yet, but the dogmen in the valley down here, they'll pop their jaws at you, snap their jaws like a pit bull, pop, 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 when you get too close to them and their kids. So when you hear that popping, it's probably jaw snapping. Let me read a few more of these comments and questions. Lower Delaware, just want to thank you for being so gracious also here. Cryptid using, yeah. My mom took me to a site here where there was supposedly a Sabe portal. It's actually a piece of stone. It's got a hole carved through the middle of it. It probably weighs half a ton, maybe 1,000 pounds. And it's planted in the ground upright. When I have a vehicle again, I'll go back up into that area and I'll film it. The problem is that object likes to, you can't always find the object. I mean, you'll know exactly where it is. But when you try to get close to that object, that stone with a hole in it, sometimes you'll pass within 5-10 feet of it and you can't fucking see it. You have to turn around in the area a couple times and look before you can actually find it. It's a very anomalous thing that happens to your brain when you try to get close to that particular rock. And that was something my mother warned me about. She's told me, don't ever look through the center of that stone and think about any place. You might go there, and if you don't know where you're thinking about, you might not be able to come back. And I thought that was a very strange thing for her to say, and that to me suggests that's a portal of some kind. But it's a physical structure, not a thing that opens. ethereally. Well, I know I was able to convince Jen one time. We had a grinding room for our mink feed, and initially my father processed unwanted animals, bigger animals, uh, for feeding his mink. So we had a full skinning scale, scale that you can weigh a 5,000 pound animal on with, hook. And I got Jen talked into coming in and playing on the swinging chain with me one day. Try to get an idea of how much she weighed. Because I asked her, but she told me that she weighed X amount of stones. So they calculate their weight in 16-pound stone weights. So her weight, when I got her onto the scale, trying to convince her to play with me, uh, she was 953 pounds. And she was 9 years old at the time. So she was an average Oma female. And that'll give you a good idea of, you're scraping probably 1,200 pounds. I think she said her father was like 1,100 or 1,200 pounds, but he was 11 and a half feet tall. So I could see half a ton, because 2,000 pounds, that's a ton. Let me read some more of these, see if there are any other questions. Well, I don't think that they're coming from anywhere in those portals. My mother said that in ancient times, that's how they traveled across the world. When they wanted to visit relatives before Pangea broke up, they would stand in front of these holes in stones and think about where they came from, and they would go to the other side of the island, or the other side of the planet, supposedly. Could all be mythology too, I don't know. But that's how she described them. They're not going off planet. There was a point-to-point on planet so that family could visit family. It wasn't so they could come from this planet and go to another planet. Those portals were for here. They just go to, like, from here to India, or from India to China, or from China to Australia, or from Australia to South America. That's all they were designed to do. After Pangea broke up, they supposedly used those portals to continue to try to interact with each other. I don't know how true that is. To me, that's all mythology. Those are part of the stories I was told. I have not confirmed that myself, so I do not yet believe it. Yes, when you get nauseous and very tired, you're getting hit with infrasound. It'll make your stomach ache. Sometimes it'll give you a nosebleed. And usually it'll be on the side that you've been hit the most from. So if you're getting hit from infrasound on the left side, the left nostril will bleed. You'll get dizzy. You'll feel like you're all like dehydrated. You'll get disoriented sometimes. You'll get really like queasy to your stomach, like seasick queasy to your stomach. It's not like you have an upset or digestion or heartburn. No, you get like seasick, queasy when you're getting hit with infrasound. So that might be what your nausea is. It means whoever you're in the area with is probably a little scared of you, or maybe they're a little more predatory than you might think. Maybe you've got one individual that's not so cool in that area. I'd be really careful if you're getting hit with infrasound. Because one of the things about infrasound is it will disorient you. It will make you mind blank where the heck you're at. And the disorientation lasts a good 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and depending on how close the individual was to you when they hit you with it, it will last longer. If you're within 3-4 feet, you're looking at a good 2 minutes where you won't be able to recognize where you're at. So either you have to make the choice of sit down, or you have to keep your senses together enough to walk out of there or be let out by your dog, which is what happened to me the first time I ever got hit that close. My dog didn't get hit. I ordered my dog Caesar, take me home, Caesar, take me out and get back to the vehicle. Because all of a sudden, the forest I had been walking in and been tracking in for 2.5 years, I didn't know where I was, like that. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm walking my dog where I always walked my dog. My nose started bleeding. I got really noxious. I felt like I was going to puke. And then I realized something was coming up to the side of me. And I'm like, we got to go now, Caesar. Get me out of here. Get me going. And so I had my dog lead me out. And that was an incident where it was an older individual. And they probably couldn't hunt. And they may have been trying to utilize me as a meal. But I didn't let that happen, thank God. Oh no, I've seen evidence of them. Like one of the things I've noticed where there's a high population of these creatures, that you're going to see missing cat and dog signs everywhere. I know that I have seen some locations where I've been tracking Sabe. I'll find dog collars, no dog, and some of those collars will be quite old. So, and you'll have 3, 4 of them sometimes you find. I don't think they do it regularly. I think it's only when there's really hard times, because you don't always get the same level of missing animals. It's only when, the winter's really bad or the summer's way too hot, then you'll start ending up with extra missing animals. But I've also got one group in this area that I think is stealing cats. I can't confirm it yet, but there's a potential that they're stealing them and trading them. I don't know. It's been a couple of years that I've noticed that sort of behavior going on in this one particular group. Cats go missing in that area, and then the other end of the trading route where that group goes, cats appear. And when you compare the cats that appear at the other end of their trading route to the cats that disappear on the original point of their route, it's the same cat that shows up that's in the missing cat poster 30 miles away. So I'm wondering if they're trading them for food or if they are trading them as pets. But it seems that there is at least one Sabe group in this area that is trading cats. Don't know why yet. Yeah, they're not evil. They're just misunderstood. Uh, uh-oh. Wait a minute. I hit the wrong button there for a second. Let me read a few more of these. Yeah, there are a lot of, when we don't grow up in a culture that teaches us about them, we don't get exposure like I got. People don't get a chance to sit down next to one when they're a kid. They don't get a chance to learn their language. They don't get a chance to learn about their culture. So all we have are just the mythic stories, they're going to eat us. And yeah, in the past, probably there were far more of them that were dangerous, like the Lovelock cave giants. But, a lot of those we've already killed off. Because I think the pockets of them that are left are the ones that have survived, that still are traditional in their ways, whatever their ways may have been. And that may not necessarily be our way. They might still practice, some of them might still practice cannibalism. Some of them might still practice hunting humans. I don't know. I do know that there are certain valleys where you can't go. You end up losing your head. There's some places, there's a place here my mother warned me about. She said, never go up into this particular ridge line. It's known to have a native ghost, a medicine person that cursed this area. If you go up there, you disappear. You don't ever come back. And over the years, people have gone hunting there. They'll sit down on a log. They'll leave their rifle. They'll eat their lunch. They'll leave their bag. They're gone. You never see them again. No trace of them. But she said, no, it's just a medicine person's magic takes them away. And I'm like, I don't get what you're saying there, but it might be a portal incident where maybe there was a person powerful enough to actually affect the energy of an area. I don't know. And I'm not going to go investigate that sort of thing. I don't want to disappear. Hi, Lauren. Oh, yeah. I've been trying to get back to you on my email. I am so sorry. My email has been bagging out on me. So the trail marker that you found shows the location of the paths around your Sabe's house. And I think you have a Yeren, because that bed, that little burrito bed with a hole in the end, that's like what my grandmother described as Yerens would sleep in. The Yeren, the people that she grew up around, made woven beds like that. They're all insulated and they can just lay inside of them and be protected from the rain. So you've got a really good find there. Well, the one sound I get that means go away is the oof sound. They just at you. And when they do that, they want you to get away from you, or them. But that's towards, you when you're on the ground, close. I don't, sometimes they'll growl at you, real deep at you. Again, they want you to leave. I've had that happen. I haven't had any of them scream at me or do anything too at me in my face. But you will hear them around. Like if you've got one coming through your area, his family, their family is somewhere in the area, so you might be hearing communication screams and sounds between, members of their own group. Right? Drinking water. You got to keep drinking water. In fact, that's, springs. A lot of time you'll find these people near springs. They prefer to drink spring water because it's harder to pollute. And most of our rivers and lakes are polluted anyway. It's the only safe, clean drinking water they can find is out of springs. So you're going to find quite a few of them wherever there are springs. Well, I don't know. I assume used that apartment bad pup. I assume that he used that apartment hallway as just a pass-through walkway. I don't think he had any interest in anybody in the building. I think he was just using it as a pass-through cover. Because he was coming down out of the hillside, passing through our building and going down onto the beaches to go hunt. So I'm guessing it kept him from being exposed to something he didn't want to be seen by. Probably us. Easier to walk through a building and not be seen than to walk through a parking lot on either side of a building and be seen. I think that's why he was doing it, was for cover. Yeah, Dogman prankster. Well, and the one I lived near, God, he'd do some really gnarly stuff. I remember one night I'd worked really late, and I'd been, I think I pulled 60 hours that week, and I had to go back to work. Like, I got one day off, and I had to go right back to work, and I wanted to sleep in so bad. I just wanted to lay in bed and not do a damn thing. And, damn fucking Dogman. 6 of the freaking morning, I'd been asleep for maybe 3 hours. He found on the side of my yurt frame, growling at me to wake me up. Like, you taking advantage of me there, just trying to scare me out to death and rob me of sleep. Well, Caddy, I'm actually a very particular kind of native. See, I'm a medicine person in my family, and my family hasn't been part of the tribal system since 1850. We were never put on a reservation, put it that way. So we didn't lose our lineal history, and we didn't lose our understanding of the Sabe, nor did we turn our backs on them when we were told to. And I'm Hunk Papa Sue, I'm Nutka, and Maya. I'm Snake Clan, Hunk Papa, and that side of my family is part of the same family as Sitting Bull. We were the greasy grass fighters. And the woman you always hear about riding across battle that nobody can, the beginning of the battle against Custer and nobody knows who she is, that was the Weiss's little sister. She's 14 years old at the time. They also they don't tell you she was carrying a Thunderbird axe, which you call a gunstock axe with 3 blades in it. That was to let them know we were Thunderbirds, and you would sport the wounds of a Thunderbird if we had to make them ourselves because we didn't have talons. Yeah, I've heard that there are lots of cryptids down in the border, kind of killing people. Uh, I don't know what to think of that. I think there's probably problems because I do know through the tribal systems, talking to some medicine people, that that border area for so many years has had so much gunfire in it. Too many of the cryptids have been killed, hunted out, and shot by people passing through. You know, coyotes. That they pretty much don't care who they kill anymore. They're done. They don't want anybody to go through their territory anymore, so they're just wiping everybody out. Ooh, well, if their senses are anything like the Sasquatch senses, then you're gonna have a dog that smells the scent trail probably 10 times better than a regular dog. Hears better, tastes more. Both cryptids, Dogman and Sabe, I think their senses are about 10 times more than our best animals. And because of the things I've been able to distinguish about them and the things that I already know about them. Mostly legends, but there's some reasons why I say what I say. I'll divulge that later. Yes, Jen Jen, when she was sitting and meditating in the afternoon, she'd make a little sound and knock the bird out. It'd go dizzy. Couldn't fly, couldn't figure out where it was. She'd pick it up, break its neck, she'd eat it. So yeah, the infrasound is used to knock you out. That's to knock the prey out, especially small prey. And they can make it enough to make you sick. They can make it enough to, make you slow down, disorient. I don't think they can kill you with it. I think they just disorient you with it. I think, the killing comes later. If you really got with a really aggressive, I'm sorry, you better shoot it. I hate to say that, but if you really seriously have one that actually is aggressive and at you, you and assume that it's going to have a bear-like skull. So you better go through something more vital. I'm just reading through some more of these comments. Let me see. Uh, yeah, I know. I believe me though. Finding that they're stealing cats. That was an odd one to discover. I've never seen that one before. So there must be something going on with that group. Yeah, take care of yourself when they hit you with infrasound. The effects last about 2 days. Uh, you'll still feel probably cruddy tomorrow, and then probably by the afternoon. It seems it takes about 48 hours for your body to readjust once you've been hit really bad, and just be real careful with that. I wouldn't want you to have that happen too many times, and the reason is you don't know if that sort of thing can maybe brain lesion you. And that's something I'm a little concerned at. If I get hit too many times, is it going to cause a lesion in my brain pan? I have had neurological scans just to make sure I don't have any because I have been hit with infrasound. And I did have the MRI done within like a year of it, not even. I think it was less than that, maybe 6, 8 months. I wanted to make sure that it didn't have a permanent anything damage-wise in me. Okay, so it looks like I caught up here. Yeah, there aren't a lot of good sources about Dogman. I mean, you can find a few. Yeah, let me answer that one. So yeah, you can find a few sources in ancient books. Like you can find stuff within the Catholic Church about Saint Christopher, because he was actually a dogman. He converted in the 1240s, if I remember right. And inside the church records, if you can get your mitts on him, you usually have to talk to a priest to do it. You'll find that he converted 240 of his people to Christianity. There are also records of dogmen in ancient Greece. One of the first kings of Samos, where Socrates was born, was actually a dogman. Um, so yeah, there are some unusual historic ancient stories. But you don't get a lot of modern stories about them. It seems like the stories died out, though they lived on, and that we're just kind of rediscovering some of the, you know, mythology about dogmen. Okay, do cryptids have higher energy frequencies? Yes, they do. A lot of them have green auras, actually, to be honest. And they, they meditate a lot. They actually have a practice of meditating in the afternoon. And if they're married, the couple will meditate together. Like Jen would meditate in the afternoon, usually around this time of day. They would sit, hum, they tune. Jen believed that her body was made of light, and that if you match the energy of the light, you disappear. So I think that is an intentional meditative practice, and I think that is part of how they disappear. Is I think they have attuned themselves to the concept that their bodies are made of light and that they can control that mentally. Oh, and telepathy. What's your bad pup? What's your question on that one? Mind speaking. I've never seen a connection between them. In fact, they usually warn against aliens and alien kinds of things. Uh, Jen Jen didn't have a concept of spaceship that way, uh, or flying machines that way. Her concepts were, we had those things at one time when we built things here, and then we don't have them anymore because we were attacked. Part of her myth cycle, part of Uncle Ong's myth cycle too. So I think any of the alien stuff is probably from off planet, not associated with them or us, but might be associated with something that happened with their ancestors potentially, or maybe even more ancient times than we realize. No, I don't think they were an experiment by aliens. Um, Everything that Uncle Ong and my grandmother and Jen Jen all mythically told me was they all believed that they came from the earth, that we came from the waters of the ocean, and that we were once, things that lived underwater and then walked on land later. So they very much have the concept of, like we have a concept that we may have just primordially came up from the world, which is nothing I disagree with. Okay, let me read a couple more of these. Oh, kiddos. Yeah, some missing 411s are probably related to cryptids, especially the things like, those that change, well, potentially some that change shape, like your wraiths, your skinwalkers, those sorts of things I know are more dangerous. Potentially there are a couple of types of, dogmen that might be dangerous, but we have to sort out the non-dangerous from the dangerous so that we don't make mistakes in which one we need to guard against and which ones we can safely be around. And then, we've got native stories and internationally there are native traditional stories about all kinds of unusual things that, miniature cannibals in the Hawaiian Islands that eat you. We had the small people here that were like a race of dwarves or midgets that were cannibals that ate people. And then you've also got, the fact that you've got a lot of human trafficking, and you've got a lot of people who just want to disappear people. You got, unknown, whatever might be alien coming here. Because I do believe that those sorts of things come through. We only stand to reason we're not the only thing in the universe. And then, just the things that we may not have met, maybe things like the face eaters, if they still exist. I recently was told that there are some still in existence. That's a scary thought. Maybe that's what the Valley of Missing Heads is about. Maybe that's all face eater territory that we don't know about. And it's those sorts of things. If our governments are hiding these things from us, I'd rather know about something like that. And so I just don't take my family there to camp, And if I've got friendly ones in the area, I'd like to know that too. If I'm camping out there, I need to know if my dog's going to be safe. I need to know if my kid's going to be safe. And what to expect. If I know nothing about them and all of a sudden I see something, I don't know what it is. Is it a Dogman? Is it a Bigfoot? Is it a Sabi? If I've never ever seen any of this or ever heard of anything like it before, it's probably going to scare the out of you. And growing up with no education about them, it's socially irresponsible in the concept of indigenous people. We always, share this information with each other. It's how you learn to live with each other or learn to live in spite of each other. What to guard against, what to secure your family against, and what you can trade with. Hey, can I get fish from you, Mr. Wachicha man? Can I trade with you, Oma, for part of your deer? I can go to these people for protection to protect me from that cryptid over there. So those are the kinds of things that this culture currently doesn't have a good grappling understanding of. They don't realize that might have been even a possibility. Yes, throat singing. Throat singing is actually something I wanted to bring up. Because throat singing, when you talk about how the Bigfoot communicate, they can communicate in a scream. Part of when I had to learn the language, I had to learn how to make double and triple sounds. I can't hardly do it now because I don't have teeth anymore. But to make a double sound, you can layer. If you move, so let's see. With throat singing, you have the sounds here, but you also have the sounds in your nasal and in the top of your mouth, and you can cycle air through your cheeks and have 5 different chambers that you can resonate with through your own skull and voice box. And I think that is how the cryptids speak their language, because some of the language, I have to do all of that in order to make the sound that's part of the language. So some of the language is so peculiar to try to pronounce. It's more like you're making the sounds of an ancient dinosaur or the sounds of an animal. Uh, only, or some of them are very fine, little tiny sounds, but they are parts of speech. So I think they utilize probably more of their facial structure to speak than we do. And that's why they can layer the sound the way that they do. You can have the scream with another sound underneath, a hum and a whistle together. People that can actually sing with 5 different tones at the same time. That's all human. That's all human communication structure. It's just we don't commonly use those kinds of languages anymore. A language we currently speak is a more frontal jaw language. It's all with your tongue, back and forth and up and down. You're not making, oof sounds. You're not making growls. You're not making clicks as part of your language. Some people speak in clicks. There's Taiwanese. Is it Taiwanese? I think there's a Taiwanese language that's clicks. It's a hill people language. It's hardly spoken by anybody anymore. Maybe 20, 30 people in the world still speak it. Nobody even knows about it. You don't read about it. It's dying out language. But I think over time we're going to discover that the facial structure, in conjunction with the voice box, is crucial for communication. You have to have comprehension mentally of those functions of your face and this portion of your, resonance before language could be even created. We had to have made calls for hunting, ancient creatures, either mimicking the call that bring them to us to lure them so we could kill them, or maybe we made a predatory call so we could chase them to a trap. So we were technically using probably animal sounds before we learned to form words. And we were using those sounds in order to create a benefit to us. And then eventually, we probably just started making our own sounds once we realized we could. But there had to have been a process in ancient time where our brain wasn't that capable yet. And we're still learning how our boombox worked, how our boombox worked, how our voice works, how our sounds work. Yeah, government's kind of asinine. They have experimented on some of them, from what I understand. And I wish they'd stop doing that sort of thing. It's disgusting. It shows lack of humanity towards another creature, especially if it happens to be a human in a hair suit. Okay, so what I thought is a mixture of cryptids, feral people, government alien swirls going through portals, and trafficking hotspots. Wow! Huh. That's an interesting thought there, bad pup. Wow, that just sounds. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna take it to the hypothetical that might, mm, if you're gonna logic those pieces together, that's a pretty good logic strand there. Well, whistling. I've actually addressed that with a friend of mine when I was up on the res, because he asked me that same question. He says, "How is whistling bad?" And I said, "Well, depends on what you're whistling at. Typically, it's not going to attract anything. In fact, it'll probably chase most stuff away just because you're making noise. And even big predators like cougar and bear, when you're making noise, they're going to leave. So whistling might actually scare off stuff. But you can actually communicate to the sabe at dusk by whistling, or later. So this is a process that my mother taught me. And you can get yes and no answers from them when you do this. So a friend of mine up on the res, he says, so don't whistle at the Bigfoot, on your property. They're going to hurt you if you do that. I said, no, they're not. Come on up. We'll build a campfire tonight, and we'll play the whistle game. And he says, what's a whistle game? I said, it's where you whistle to them and they whistle back. You tell how many of them are there by counting how many whistles you hear in the trees and on the ground. There were 22 of them around us that night. We whistled for 2 hours with them. So what happens is you go, and they go back at you. If you want to ask them a question, you say, one whistle, yes. Two whistles, no. And then you ask a yes or no question, like, do you worship the Creator? Or do you pray? They'll whistle back. So they'll give you a no answer a couple times, stuff like, do you eat people? They'll give you a whistle for no. 2 no's. No. And then they'll get to a point, after they do that 4 or 5 times, they'll only whistle once for yes, and then they'll remain silent for no. It was a way of quietly communicating with them, and nobody would be none the wiser, and you could sit around a campfire with a bunch of coon hunters and trappers, people that weren't necessarily friendly with natives, and you could talk to your cryptid friends in the bushes and still have communication. So yeah, the only thing that happened is, if you screwed with the Indian at the campfire. Oh, I'm sure the government's completely aware of them. I mean, they hunt them on res land. Black Ops individuals drop out of flipping helicopters and try to shoot them. That's common practice. And it, in my opinion, is something that needs to stop, especially if they happen to be indigenous humanoids. That's genocide. Well, I tried to teach Jen Jen how to whistle. And her facial structure wouldn't allow it. The most she could get was they're not a sharp like that. She could never get she couldn't get a full sound. She got a little sound. So, uh, I think only certain ones whistle. I know the Yeren can whistle, because I've heard them whistle. And I know the Skookum can whistle. But I think it's more difficult for the Oma and the Guanche, whose jaws are a little thicker. And they seem to have more troubles whistling. So you might not even be whistling at a cryptid you think you're whistling at. The whistle you made, I have that precise sound. Oh yeah, that. Yeah, those are parts of their speak. You can actually layer words in that, and it will carry quite a distance. But I, I have a broken larynx now. I can't project it anymore. I can only just make the mouth sound of it. I can't project it. A native healer told me I have to take up drum singing to heal this. So I have to be a drummer for a few years and learn how to heal this bone, put it back together before I can make my sounds correctly again. Because there are many of sounds I can't even make anymore because like my voice doesn't work correctly. I wouldn't say that it is disrespectful going whooping in the woods, but whoop is meant to be a call for help, and it's an intergroup communication. They'll be screaming for help, like a child will be whoop 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 whoop, bring adult, come help me. When an enemy comes into the area, they'll make a whoop. If they see you as an enemy, they will whoop because you're there. They call us coyotes. We act like predator coyotes to them because we get too close to their children. So they don't see us as thinking right. They think us that we're dangerous to them. Just like we think they're dangerous to us. Isn't that funny? So, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to switch to Friday or keep this on Saturday. But I think I'm going to cut it probably down to one of those 2 days just because of time constraints. And I'm going to try to make the shows longer, 2, 3 hours. Just answering questions and, trying to fill in on things that I've experienced or, stories that I'm aware of. And I'll try to do a topic each time. But I'm probably going to go off track on my topic. I always seem to. Okay, so which house on my can? Well, I know the Guanche could speak telepathically, and now I know that Jen Jen has learned to communicate telepathically. Because Guanche, her husband, taught her, and there are methods you can use to enhance your telepathic abilities. Yeah, I have actually heard lots of stories about various types of them that have the ability to be telepathic. But then we are telepathic. Us humans have a degree of telepathy, whether we realize it or not. When you go into work and you're wearing the same outfit or color of outfit that half your coworkers are using, you didn't call each other and say, "Hey, I'm wearing a yellow shirt today, aren't you?" But everybody who shows up in that end of the building is wearing a yellow shirt. Well, how'd that happen? Didn't tell each other. So there's a certain level of latent telepathic nature to people. And it's that latent telepathic behavior or understanding that needs to be increased upon and practiced in order to have a complete telepathic connection with somebody or something. But, some of us figure that out on their own. Others have to practice. I know that the Guanche, the Sabe, those people, they practice those tactics. And so do the dog people. It's part of their hunting societies, like their deer society. When they're learning to hunt and becoming part of that society, they are taught to communicate telepathically and only use animal calls. Additionally, they're also taught how to, jump from a tree without breaking a foot. They're taught how to utilize their energy to cushion their own fall. And it's weird to look at when you see it at night because you see their feet look like they're turning blue. The energy around them looks like blue light when they hit the ground. They fall silently. You don't hear them hit the ground. You'll see them. To me, I see the blue and then I'll hear a slight, just like you stepping on the ground, but I won't hear a big thump. If they make a big thump, they haven't gone through that training. They aren't hunters yet. They aren't medicine people yet. They're still, like you and I. They haven't gone through anything different. But when you get into their inner societies, into their deer societies, and into their medicine practices, those individuals are taught very specific things. Some of it is, laying on of healing hands. My father, he uses his voice to heal. I had infestation. I had a tick when I was in the dog area with the Dogman. I ended up getting a tick in my back. I couldn't get the thing out. I couldn't reach it. My watch father, my adopted father, had a dream about me having the tick. So he came and let me know mentally, one of the few times he's ever talked to me that way, to come outside. He wanted to heal me. I went outside and he made a sound, it made me sick. I got so sick I threw up. And then he verbally let me know, he says, the ticks will leave your body, the larva will leave. And then he left. And for 2 days, the larva came, the tick larva came out of my body, and I had no more tick. No more infestation, and didn't need to take any antibiotics for any kind of Lyme's disease or anything. It never hurt me, but he healed me with his infrasound. So there's also that aspect of them. Yeah. Okay. The reason why I don't camp with a tent, well, I went camping up here at one of the local campgrounds, where I was told by the individual at the campground, though I had a vehicle I could have RV'd in, oh no, you must sleep in a tent back there in that corner. Really? So, I ended up with some sort of a crawler critter. It didn't have any hair on its body, and a little bit smaller. Its stature maybe 5'5", a little bit shorter than me, I'm guessing, because it didn't look that big when it was leaving. When I hunkered down, it was a couple inches shorter than me, hunkered down on the ground. So I assume it was in, size of a teenager. It didn't have claws or anything. It had fingernails, but they were dark. And it had tried to unzip my tent. Now, it had poked down the side of my tent with its finger. It had sniffed along the seam line. My dog's hackles went up, and she went low growl. She didn't do a sound. She was just. And I know that particular, when she makes that, she's not happy. She gets real quiet when she gets like she's going to attack something. She gets quiet. She doesn't get barky. She doesn't get loud. She goes the opposite direction. And yeah, it sounded initially when it crawled alongside of my tent, I thought it was a raccoon. But then I smelled garbage. It smelled horrible, nasty. It smelled like rotten meat, garbage, and blood. And, it was messing around with my tent, and then it tried to open my tent. I grabbed my knife and grabbed my dog. It's either I'm knifing my way the heck out the tent or I'm cutting that thing into cubes. And I told it, I'm going to turn you into little cube bite bits if you try to come in here. And it stopped trying to open my tent. And it stopped for a minute and kind of growled. And it was breathing heavy, and you could hear it kind of rasping at the, right there, 2 feet away. I'm like, oh God. And I almost cut my tent to leave, but I'm like, if I make any sudden movement, maybe it's going to chase me, so I'll just hold ground. And it finally left, because evidently it had brain power enough to understand I wasn't going to be scared of it, because I threatened it. So as it was leaving, I didn't unzip my tent, but that top flap, you can just push it up, your rain flap, you can look, through the mesh. And as it was crawling away in the moonlight, I could see it was pale skin, it was emaciated looking. It looked like a human. It didn't look not like a human. It just looked like a really starved, creepy looking human. and but I didn't see its face or anything. It wasn't, it was crawling away from me, and that's the only encounter that I've had like that in my life. And I'm assuming that's a crawler or a wraith or something. I don't even know what that is, to be honest, because that thing wasn't part of my grandmother's, you know, lore cycle. It wasn't anything we were aware of in my tribal system, so I don't know what that cryptid is. I just know I don't want to be around it, and I don't want it coming after me. And I don't want to have to fight it. So let me read a few more of these. Okay. Yeah. Uh, well, there are some things. Uh, you have to understand, some cryptids have been hunted by the church. Yeah, you're welcome, Bad Pup. I like the idea of doing questions and, exchanging information with each other. The reason is if we all act individually, we're never going to solve the entire puzzle alone. But if we can start learning from each other, what's relevant, what adds up, then we can start trying to come up with some idea or concept. Okay, last question from me. All right, Bad Pup. Paranormal is real too. Oh yeah, I've seen some really weird stuff on that end of things. Like one of the reservations I was on, they were having problems with some sort of entity in one area. They couldn't identify it, but all the grass would die in that area, and nothing would grow. So the medicine people started putting up tobacco, like tobacco ghosts, to get rid of the bad entities so that life could come back to the area. So you can have those sorts of things occurring too. You know, either they are entities that might be old, that have left behind from a battle. A lot of angry ghosts are from battles, and or sorry about the train. It goes by at its time of day. Or you'll have entities that come from another dimension that are not good to be here, and they are actually not supposed to be here if they're from another dimension, and they're supposed to be following the rules and staying on their side of the veil, which is why you actually have power to throw them back over. They're technically, by creation's law, not supposed to be here or interfere with human beings. They were already cast out. Yeah, you might be right on that, Bad Pup. Because there weren't any mythology that I'm aware of about crawlers in native lore. We had the skinwalker, medicine person who takes the form of other things because of magic or because of practice. But we had the Wendigo, you know, deer antlered spirit that might be kind of a misunderstanding between deer society and somebody that might have a wasting disease. And originally, I was told that the wasting disease is an infestation of ticks in your bloodstream that eventually kill you and eat you from the inside out. That's why the deer walk around with holes in them. I don't know how true that is because I don't know what the disease really is, and I don't know if science has actually figured it out yet either. But that was the old myth about it. So we're, oh my, 2.5 hours. You guys have sat here for 2.5 hours listening to me. Thank you. You're awesome people. I'm so glad to have such nice individuals around me. Oh, I use my middle name, Awisa. That was my grandmother's name. Well, great grandmother Awisa. She was born in 1832. She was the woman that founded our lineage of medicine person, and why I was taught to be a dog soldier. Mel's Hole in Washington, yeah, with all the screaming entities in it. You know, maybe those ancient myths of Tartarus were real. Kind of makes me wonder. Um, but those might not be entities. Maybe that's gas through holes. I don't know what those sorts of things might be. Uh, I don't know if they're necessarily real creatures or spiritual creatures, or if it's something that can be explained. Maybe it's something physically happening in those holes. And as long as they don't come to the surface, I don't care if they're below me. I just don't want to have to deal with them up here. Thanks. They can stay in their home. I don't want to encourage them to come visit. Hey, Courage Dave. Good language set you got. Hawaii, so yes. So, yeah, I think that a good portion of their behaviors are probably misunderstood, and it's probably due to our lack of knowledge about them and our lack of ability to interact with them. And I think that's probably a bigger factor than anything else. Awesome, thank you. Well, since I've run it this far along, do we want to do 20 more minutes, or do we want to just end it here in the next 4 or 5? Oh, why do you think I'm wild? Hold on. Why do you think I'm teaching you how to communicate with them? I'd rather have somebody 10 feet tall able to fend my back and feed me fish than to worry about some guy with a gun. Oh, thank you. So, yeah, no, part of our way we survived, in hard times in particular, these beings, forest people, our forest brothers, they'd protect us from predators. My grandmother, my native grandmother, when she was 2.5, 3 years old, about 3, she was playing with the Yeren young, and they were washing, she said roots. They were getting ready to eat roots. They were washing roots in the little spring, and cougar tried to attack her and the Yeren child. The adult male Yeren man jumped forward, grabbed the cougar as it was leaping out of the air, and broke its neck, laid it on the ground. That was to protect my grandmother and her Yeren childhood friend. So yeah, I'm 100% convinced they'll protect you. If that's any indication. And then, the rest of the group, all the young ones ran over and hit it with rocks and beat it with their fists and beat it with sticks. She even went over and did the same thing. Be part of the group. You know. So, yeah, we had to have lived here on this continent for as long as American natives have. I mean, they recently discovered we've been here for 30,000 years, and that matches up to information I know lore-wise. I got to show you some things that you're not going to believe. But I do have one piece that goes back 30,000 years in my family. I have one more piece that goes back 20,000 years. Those are the only two really antique pieces I still have left as medicine tools. And I know the lore that goes with them. So, if we've been living here, even elsewhere in the world, if we've been living here with them, they're either going to have been helpful to us, ignored us, or potentially eaten us. So I don't think there are that many left that eat us. At least not like there were, a couple hundred years ago, maybe. The Lovelock Cave giants, I think, are very much probably like the Afghani giants that were just found. So there are obviously potentially still some of those cryptids still around. And probably not as many here in America, but still over in the cave systems there. Because those things do live in caves. But they're not hairy all over. They're got hair on their head like us, and they're hairless on the rest of their bodies. So there's that sort of thing to consider too. Uh, learning from your indigenous people, they really do understand their myth cycles. I mean, they had to live next to these things. It's only within the last 100 or so years that most of our what we call native traditions and lore has all of a sudden become mythology. Before modernization, that was history. That was known history, not mythology. The perspective of it as being mythological was a concept foreign to us. We knew our oral traditions as history, no matter what they were about. Well, I don't know if there is per se naturally born shapeshifters. Um, I don't quite know what you mean by that. Because shapeshifting to me, that I mean, it's something. If you were could do that, it has to be your energy controlling your body, take a different form. That has to be something that you concentrate on. It's not a magic. It had, like a social thing. It has to be something that you've learned. If it's even possible. Then there are lots of stories, like the Court of Rhinanon. That's an old story about the same sort of thing. There are plenty of druidical stories, for instance, that talk about uh, druids being able to change forms, a fish to a bird, to a deer, to a bear, to a whatever. So I don't know what you mean by naturally born, unless there's, like werewolf or something. But I've never run across a werewolf. I don't know anybody who naturally formed that way by birth. I only know of mythical things like, societies of people that have learned to do this, religious cults that have learned to do these sorts of things, or people who practice certain kinds of magic who have learned to steal forms by taking the hide of the animal and wearing the hide, and it has magical symbols on it that allow you to take the form of the animal. That sort of thing. The only thing I know mythically, I've never seen any of that behavior, so I can't speak directly about it. The hairless ones, uh, Katie, hairless humans? I don't know. Are you talking about this crawlers with no hair? Because yeah, that'd be a crawler, and a crawler isn't anything I know out of native myth. I'd have to go talk to some other tribal member to see if anybody else knows any myths about that, but I'm not aware. And we had things like the weirdo medicine people taking forms, and then we had the hunter societies that learned to take forms. So there's, the good side where you're learning to hunt and you take a form because it's a good form to hunt an animal in. And then you have bad magic where an individual is stealing the forms of animals in order to trick humans so they can steal from you or cannibalize you. So the two different perspectives on that. It's two different angles. Yeah, there are a lot of cryptids that understand that we aren't taught anything about them, and that I've had them be very patient with me. I've tested their limits to see, will they correct me? Will they assist me? Will they alter their behavior to do something for me? Or will they have me alter my behavior in some way to do something for them? And that's something I've been toying with for years to try to figure out how easy it might be able to overall interact with them. And they kind of view us as kids. They for some reason it seems part of their mentality is that we just don't get it. We're not educated enough. And that's why I always, when I go in to interact with them, I start with the children and interact with the children so that the parents will go, oh, that individual does know something. We used to know mythology about people 100 years ago could do this sort of thing, talk to us. Now this person is here doing that. So then, I can get a little better interaction because they'll start presenting me with words, or they will present me with, a concept where I have to complete a kanji to make a word. Every once in a while I'll get a little odd thing like that, or I'll get something that indicates that they're trying to correct, like if I'm trying to sound out a kanji on the ground and I don't get it right, I will get a correction. Sometimes I'll get an auditory. They'll tell me I pronounced it wrong, but they'll just do the sound. So maybe I'll be pronouncing something that needs a ch sound, and I think it's a j sound, and I'll hear ch from the woods. So I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. Uh, so there's that. They seem to try to, like, if you are worried about them being in their area, they will let you know where they are. They'll put, ground markers down. They'll put trail markers down, let you know where they are at, and compared to you, where you interact. And they'll clearly show you, if you want to avoid my house, don't go this way. If you want to come visit me, that's where I sit. And they lay it all out in the trail markers. So, that's a communication between them, but sometimes they'll do that to you too. Like, for instance, if you're very close, your home is very close to where they go through, they'll start including you in that kind of communication. They'll start laying down kana to see if you understand the sound, or they might put the trail marker down to see if you can read it. They'll put a kanji down to see if you understand it, and they'll put it where you can find it. And they might even put it on your back step or at your front door or in your driveway if they really want to see if you understand them. So when you start noticing and you start putting together what they say on the ground is relevant to what you see around you, they notice that, because they sit around in the trees, they sit around in the bushes all day long, and they watch us. They're doing their thing, they're eating, they're foraging, but they pay attention to what we're doing in their area. We walk through. They're not going to say anything or do anything to us. They're just going to look over and go, oh, human walking through, if they even bother. You know? It's when you get out further where they haven't seen a lot of people, where you might have more troubles. I think something's happened over there. I think I got one across the river. Can't see him, but I hear tapping. Anyway, that's interesting. It's getting on towards movement time. They come through this area around 6, 7 at night. They start getting into the, more shaded areas and get cooled off. And I'm so glad you guys are communicating with each other. Yeah, I love to see that, because I didn't realize, for instance, that there were any other Badger people anywhere else until somebody posted some pictures on their community section of their YouTube channel and let me know, hey, we got Badger people here. And, I love to see that because then, we can start correlating where these critters are and we can start mapping the behaviors in those areas. Are we seeing a lot of people disappearing? And is it really related to that kind of cryptid, or is it related to some other cryptid? Or is it something completely different? And the problem is we don't have enough information bases to try to correlate that. We're going to have to build that kind of understanding ourselves. That's going to have to come with people talking to each other. Yeah, they know when I move. I've had them communicate um, in this area, and I'm never any. I have a tendency to move around a lot. I like to put myself in places where I know there are cryptids and be there for 3, 4 months, a year, 2 years, so that I can understand them. Like the Dogman thingy, those inky prints. I've known about that area for years. I've never been able to find a place up in that region of town, because that's in the hills in this area until this year. And now I'm able to stay in that area enough that I can actually, listen to the ambiance, what passes through, what are the sounds I hear at night, what happens in the early morning, what happens in dusk, what do I hear during the day, do I hear anything in the day, and it's that kind of, being able to sit in the middle of a territory where something's passing through. Until you can do that and listen to the area and see where they're moving, you can't just go in and figure it out unless you know how to track them to their door. You know, I can do that with some of them because I know enough about their behavior and I know enough about where they potentially sleep. So that being the case, sometimes you can get straight into an area and right up on them, but sometimes they hide themselves pretty well. So it's real difficult to be able to find enough, ground evidence that will actually take you to where they sleep or where they forage. So you got to kind of pay attention to what you can find. And then, different times of year, they move in different ways because they forage for different things. Like, when baby chicks come on, when the ducklings come on, they change their foraging pattern, and all the groups in these areas come grab ducklings out of the rivers, out of the lakes, all through the area. And they'll trade up, up mountain and out into the forests. But, in the fall, you're going to see more collection of hard goods or berries. They'll go through, maybe they'll strip an entire bush line of blackberries, 200-300 feet. And you'll be stripped from 2 foot to 8 foot up where you can't even reach. They're probably drying them and keeping those. They do they do store food. They do have rudimentary types of archaic forms of food preservation. You dry it, you put it in a hollow log, you bury it, you refrigerate it in a hole. That you lay logs in the bottom of the hole, it keeps some air circulation, you put your food on top of it, and then you cover it with something shady. And you make sure it's in a moist, shaded area so that it stays cooler. So they do have those concepts. And they also do things like up in Washington, they'll stack rotten logs around a rotten trunk of a tree, like a stump, to collect more termites. And they'll stack them in such a way that it builds a partition wall that they can go in and out of, because it's set up so you can move through it, but you visually can't see what's going on in that area, and they'll set their babies, their little ones, in there eating termites all day. You'll hear them munching. As soon as you go in to try to find them in that little structure, though, they'll move out the other side and disappear. So there's those kinds of behaviors too. You have to think they're like cave people that don't live in caves. They're indigenous people that don't want to talk to you, but they live like us, and they have the same kind of values we have. They don't like rapists. They don't like murderers. They like to protect their children. They teach their children. They educate their children. They have social structure. There are certain expectations. They don't like thieves. They don't like being stolen from. That's all very human. And that's all behavior that we can associate with. And we can maybe learn to associate with them through. Let me read a few more of these. And I'm probably going to pop off here at about 4 more minutes. It's been awesome today. And I do like doing this a little longer. This is really good. So I think I'll keep doing it this way. And I think I'm going to keep the graphic that I put up today. That's a painting I did a few years back. I think I'll keep that as my live graphic. That way, when that Thunderbird medicine person graphic shows up, you know who it is. It's just little old Elisa. Yeah, you're right on that one, Bad Pup. Our society needs to become more conscious. The problem is we haven't learned to refocus our minds yet. We're still focused on ourselves too much. We need to kind of learn to look around. Very true, Crunkle. Cats don't like tobacco and whiskey, but other things do. Yeah, some of the Sabe do have some very strange senses of humor. Like, I had one urinate on my head one night as a joke. And he'd already done it to another guy an hour before I got there. So, yeah, they can be pranksters. You had wow, Deborah, that's cool. Too bad you aren't still doing that. Yeah, my grandmother did actually. My native grandmother did say that there were sky beings. There were like elementals. And my father believed in fire elementals. And he was, Mongolian, Russian, German. But he still believed in fire drakes. Go figure. Okay. Oh, Auntie Angie. Yes, Owyssa. Owyssa. That's my middle name. It was in Grandmother Oyssa's namesake name. Well, I think I'm going to have to go. My throat's starting to hurt. And my voice is starting to go. So I will see you guys later in the week. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you again. Take care.